Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Simpletin podcast. Today, we'll be discussing the importance of consistent branding. I'm your host, Timei Ayoromi, and with me today, I've got the fantastic and talented Simpletin Consulting team. Over to you.
My name is Emmanuel Iwe, and I'm the management and operation consultant here at Simpletin Consulting.
Hi, my name is Omarin Sola, and I'm the brand designer here at Simpleton Consulting.
So, today, I think one of the most important things that we work on in the office is branding.
Sure.
And I think recently we've been very intentional about making sure that the brand is consistent, not just for us or for the work that we do with clients. So I think the question I want to ask, how important is it for branding to be consistent for businesses in today's world?
Oh, it is super important. It is so important to be consistent with your branding because the branding obviously is, well, most people do not know that, but it is more than the logo. It is more than having that nicely done logo and that's pasted everywhere. It's more than that. It's about your voice, your tone, your values being consistent. And what is that? Your voice is basically how you talk. It's like the personality that your brand carries. And then the tone is like the emotional context behind the voice. Like it's like putting out a birthday message or like an apology message. It's still the same personality, still the same person that is saying it, but the way it's being said is different. That's just like the tone. So when you are consistent, your voice has to be consistent. Your tone has to be consistent. The use of colors has to be consistent. You cannot change your logo every 2 business days. Like, no, there has to be consistency because the consistency ensures brand recall. It ensures brand recognition. So when there is someone out there that sees like a marketing material that's being put out and they're like, oh yeah, I know this brand. And then next tomorrow is different. You're like, oh, what brand is this? I saw one brand with this same name, but like it's different. Do you see? There is no brand recall, there's no brand recognition. So that is why it is very important for there to be consistency. And that is one thing that you touch on that you talk about every single time. We're like, Maureen, our colors need to be consistent. You cannot use like one color here on this slide deck and on this other slide deck there's another color. There needs to be consistency, even with the logo placement on slide decks. It's something that we always talk about. Even in manual, it's like, okay, this thing is not well aligned. Like the other ones were aligned on this page this way. It has to be consistent. So yeah, that's just how I feel. That's what I believe consistency, like that's why it's just so important to have that consistent branding on everything.
So would you say, I think, let me ask the question this way, okay? What would you say from your perspective branding is? Like when you hear that word branding, because I think sometimes we assume that everybody knows and everybody understands when you say brand or branding. But in business, whether it's a personal brand or a business brand, what would you say that word brand or branding is? What does that mean?
Okay, so for me, in a nutshell, I would say that branding is the perspective of the customer or your potential clients of your business. Now, the business has the duty to construct that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go into business, there are many outputs you have. You have your website, you have your logo, you have your colors. Every single thing is telling a message. And when a client or a potential client sees any of the output of the business, they should have a particular feeling. When they are even communicating with the client, I mean, when, for instance, you are communicating with the client, or an employee or a team member from the company is communicating with the client, there needs to be a way. There's a way that they are communicating, and that's a major part of branding. So when we engage, just like when we went to Reach the other day, immediately we finished, we were like, this is what I'm talking about when you talk about branding.
The experience, right?
The way, the experience you got from them. And that's like one of the strongest things apart from the logos and all the colors, because how your customer feel is so important.
Yeah.
So how you make them feel is what it is. And for me, I would say that's branding basically. Basically, it's just what is the perspective that you have constructed for your clients to see. And how do they see? Because after constructing it, how they perceive it is really important. So if you construct it and you are not getting the product or you're not getting the result, you have to go back and see that they are getting what you want them to get from the brand. I think that's what it is.
So I would say it's like building a reputation.
Exactly.
So it's the brand's responsibility to build a reputation that once a customer goes to them or like outside sees that product,
Yeah.
they're able to get the same feeling that they expressed the very first stage.
Exactly.
Consistent every single time.
Yeah, so branding is like a company's identity.
Yes, it is.
It is like how you shape people's guts feeling about your brand.
Exactly. That gut feeling, that emotional connection, that is very, very, very important when it comes to branding.
Do you think that word? Let's stick on that word.
Mm.
Do you think people get emotionally connected to your brand?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
So name one brand that you're emotionally connected to. If you say that's a thing,
There's a lot. So I love Nigerian fashion brands a lot.
Okay.
There's one right now that I really love, and it's called Moe. They have like this very interesting ashoke trousers, ashoke tops, and like it's like I just love the spin that they have on it. Their branding is consistent. The way they take their pictures is like not so conventional. And I really, really love that. Like I tie into the whole thing. At first I was like, what's this so interesting? And then I went on their Instagram and then I went there with like obviously the mindset of like a brand designer. And like every single post consistent. Yes, and then the message as well. I was like 10 out of 10. So that is one brand right now, and it's Nigeria, so that even makes it much better.
Yeah.
The fact that that is coming out of Nigeria, and the fabric, the prints, like 10 out of 10. So yeah, that's one.
For emotion, like I think what you said is very important. I believe that we might struggle with this and people will argue, but the truth is most people make decisions off emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, of how they feel. And just like I was saying, so how you have made them feel. So for instance, I remember back then when I was in Uniben, Coca-Cola, everybody drinks Coca-Cola, but somebody came up with a brand strategy, which was to begin to share clothes and sell Coke with somebody. So like a friend, you can say, okay, share this Coke with Maureen. And then he started to give people shirts with the have your name at the back. Now everybody's drinking Coca-Cola. Some people even feel that Coca-Cola is so much for them, you know. Oh, when they came in there, they started distributing shirts, the sales skyrocketed just because.
Yeah, that was the branding strategy.
Do you understand? They were able to connect with the brand. So what I would say is emotion is so important. Finding a way to connect with your client or your potential client via their emotion. What makes this person ticks? What do you think this person likes? And that takes to data, but that's another story for another day. You know, that can be, infused into data to understand your customer, to understand people generally, and how you can connect to them emotionally. So I think that emotion can be cut out of branding. It's a major part of brand.
When you mentioned Coca-Cola, I remembered I don't take soft drinks, but anytime I see a bottle of Coke with my name on it, I'll always buy it and keep it.
Can you imagine? Just because of that, people don't. A lot of people didn't drink because they came with crate like trucks
Oh yeah.
of Coke. And both there are a lot of people that don't drink Coke. They are not really interested in Coke. But just that force of they are sharing shirts. Because I had one for me. That's how I got a nickname back then in school. Bobo was the root Bobo at the back, and the people started calling me Bobo. I got the shirt. I was not really interested in the drink, but that made them to say. People just want to have the drink, share with the family. Oh, my name is Emmanuel. Oh, share with Maury, like a big one. Share with the family, and it was just it.
So let's touch. So we're going to come to the elements, right, or branding, right, so people can understand what that actually means. But let's touch UI UX, right? A lot of people don't really understand the importance of UI UX, right? I remember I spoke to Fatima one time and I said, look, aside your fantastic skills on developing prototypes and stuff, I want you to kind of learn and understand the importance of branding, because we started building websites and stuff for clients, and we don't do the conventional just build a website. We build very functional and very branded websites, right? So in that process, when you started delving into branding, what did you learn about the importance of a consistent brand in your UI UX design?
All right. So before learning branding, like before learning about branding, I honestly was not paying attention to the little details of going out of my way to check the exact color code and use it. So let's say Simpletin color is blue, navy blue. I won't go out of my way to get the exact color code and use it on my design. I'll just get any random navy blue and use it and move on. So after learning about branding, I understood how important it is to like go out of your way, get the exact color codes, the font, every single thing. Like you have to pay attention to details, because that color code that you think like, oh, just color, you can use like the navy blue is navy blue. Navy blue is not navy blue, because that is the brand's identity. So branding and UI UX both hand in hand.
So now that we've mentioned UI UX, right? A lot of people might not understand what that is. So can you simplify what UI UX is, to listeners?
So UI UX is user interface and user experience. So let me start with user experience. User experience is what your users feel, what your users need and want from your products. You want to go to the extent of carrying out a user research. That is, you can either do a qualitative or quantitative research. You can carry out a survey by sending out questionnaires to to understand what your users need and understand from your product. So whatever it is that you are doing, it is for the users, not you. It is not about you. So if you think like, oh, this thing is just okay, it is not okay, because you don't know what users want. So that is user experience. User experience is the feel, and like user interface is you visualizing the experience. So UX, user experience, is the feel, and UI is the look. So yeah.
Okay, so earlier on we talked about the fact that when you're building, a client's website and you're prototyping, your UI UX, we mentioned when talking about this earlier on, we said the user's journey, right? You incorporate a journey into that experience. Can you just explain what that actually means? Like the experience in a journey. What is a user journey?
So a user journey is the user's end-to-end journey when they interact with your product. That is how they get from point A to point B, like their complete journey on it while using your products.
So you used an example of what, a shop or a shopping mall.
Right. So let's say you go to a mall. User journey is from the point you enter that mall to the point you leave the mall. It includes the shops you visit, what you did in each and every particular shop till you leave that mall. So it's the same thing.
The layout of the mall,
Exactly.
the fire exits, the toilet, how clean the toilets are, the security, how they
Yes.
greet, all that kind of stuff is really what the journey is about. So in that journey, what we're talking about when we say branding, being consistent, is that you want the user to have a feel and an
Exactly.
experience in that journey.
When I said navy blue is not navy blue, we have a lot of scammers out there. So let's say you're selling a product, you can get somebody to like that tiny difference will like I don't know.
Also, it's like having two bottles of Coke and the eggs, that one, that's what I'm going to say, is slightly smaller, but to the other.
No, like
that the
one is
the quality.
this thing, the logo. One is, the white. What is that? Let's say one is gray and one is white. So users will be able to say that, oh, this is Coca-Cola or it's not. So you need to ensure consistency.
Yeah.
You also mentioned brand guides. Like you now request for a brand guide to follow on your designs. What's the importance of brand guide? Because we're going to talk to Maureen about what actually a brand guide is. But before we go into that, when you're doing designs, what's the importance of a brand guide to you?
So to me personally, I feel more connected to the brand when I'm using, like, when I get your brand guide, I feel more connected, and kind of I use it to ensure that, okay, your users will feel connected to your brand as well, and then build trust, and that's loyalty, because you can't be having, like, your brand color cannot be yellow on Instagram and orange on your website. So it's kind of just to build that trust and loyalty.
So every time people see it,
Yes.
they kind of feel like this is,
And automatically, this is Simpletin.
and they're very connected to that whole thing. So Maureen, when we talk about brand guide now, so Fatima needs a brand guide to deliver quality work for the client, to make sure the client's customers are connected to their touch points, their products, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what she needs to deliver good work, right? But before she gets that, what is a brand guide, and what are the elements of a brand guide that makes it important to have for every business?
Okay. A brand guide simply is a document that contains all the branding elements that a brand needs. It is the document that has the brand messaging, the brand tone, the brand voice guidelines. It has visual identity. It has the imagery and videography style. It also has the core values within it. So I'll just go through all the elements. So you start from the brand messaging. The brand messaging contains the vision statement and the mission statement, as well as the brand story. Sometimes it could also contain the founder story, and they could come in different ways. It could start like an origin story of the brand, or it could just talk mainly about what the brand does, what they deliver, or something inspirational. There are so many ways a brand story could be told. So that's that for brand messaging. And then you have the brand voice and brand tone guideline. The brand voice simply is how things are said. It's how the personality of brand comes out. The words that are chosen when the brand speaks and when they connect with their audience. That is literally the brand voice. And then you have the brand tone. The brand tone is literally the emotional context behind the brand voice. That is what helps and makes the brand voice be very sturdy. It's like two twins leaning on each other, and they need each other's support to be one and to be strong. So without that emotional context, the voice is just there. It's like saying, let's say an employee loses a co-op and you need to send out a condolence message or a text as a team to that person. The brand voice still is strong and still carries that, that strong voice. But then there is that emotional side, there's that emotional context that is like, okay, we feel your pain, we understand that you're hurting in this moment, yada 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 yada, all of that. That is in that message. And then there could be today could be someone's birthday, and we're just like, hey, happy birthday. We wish you long life. You've gone around this earth and you're back here and you're still with us. Like, we're grateful, like we're happy. But then it still carries the brand voice. But the emotional context is very, very necessary. Or like when we're speaking with a particular client, instead of us to be playful and saying, yay, happy birthday, where clients are like, okay, very, professional, put together. We're like, hello, good day, ma'am. How are you doing? Or like an email we're putting out is very professional. Things that's like the brand too. So that is why the two of them are together.
And you see, that's very interesting, because when you actually come into contact with brands,
Mm-hmm.
I think you do feel their voice and the tone.
Mm-hmm.
Because saying brands, they're just strict and very official.
Yes.
Some brands, especially maybe like creative brands, they can be very playful in terms of how they use. So I think what you're saying is the kind of words that are used kind of plays a big role in terms of the voice and the tone, in
Yes.
terms of how that's delivered. Let me ask you a question. So what would you say Simpleton's brand voice and brand tone is?
Oh, we have quite a few. We're not like the basic, consulting firm. We're like look at us. Look at this setting. Look at our place. Look at my bucket hats. We're casual. Even though we're engaging with ourselves, like internally, like I know not everyone obviously can see how we engage with ourselves, but like we are casual. We're like, okay, hi, hello, not too formal. But at the same time, we embody that formal tone when we're engaging with our clients.
So basically it just means that, we can be very serious,
Mm-hmm.
but very unserious at the same time. But we kind of understand our ex and the context, yes. Because it comes out in how we look. There are times we're very formal, when we mean business, and there are times like we want to adapt, because again, we promise clients that we are very tailored to the solutions we provide for
Yes.
them. So it kind of means like when you meet a client, you can't always be boom, 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 very uptight.
Yeah, like we embody that friendliness in meetings as well.
Yeah, so you have to adapt. So I'll come back to, the elements within a brand guide. You got brand tone, you got the brand story, the
Vision, mission statement.
vision, mission statement.
Yes.
So we'll come back to the do's and don'ts
Mhm.
in a brand guide, and also the visuals, right? So just put that in mind. But I have a question I want to ask Emmanuel, because one of the things I always think about is there is the branding externally, but I also think that branding also has a role to play in a company's culture, in an organization's culture internally. How that, like, we talk about the tone, the voice, the messaging, how we, kind of work together. Do you think that it has a role to play, especially like the way we are in Simpleton? Do you think, branding actually is something that, comes into context when you talk about company culture? And why do you think that, if you do have a view on that?
Okay, so remember that initially I said that the company has a duty or responsibility to craft how the client perceives them. So internally, they are doing the crafting from the culture, from the brand tone, how we speak to each other, because you can't give what you don't have. It is of the wealth, of the abundance of a well-structured culture that when a client interacts with you or engages with you, they get a reflection of the internal culture that's been built. So we can be building a brand, but it starts with us. It starts with the team. It starts with what we do, how we do our work, how we take each other's opinion, how we respect each other before we now talk about clients. Because every single member is a representative of the company. And what they are representing is the culture of the company to that client. So branding is in two phases. There's a back end and there's a front end. The front end for the clients, what they're experiencing, and the back end is what the team has created for themselves to experience and what the clients will experience.
I think I like that front end and back end. Yeah. Because it's something I think about a lot. I think about things like, for instance, when we work on onboarding,
Yeah.
how do we onboard employees? Yeah. I feel like that is part of branding. Yeah, that is a part of what we are doing. How we want people to feel when they come in. The kind of training we deliver when they come in as part of their onboarding kind of starts to shape, the company culture. So for any organization that is trying to build a team and scale up, I think branding is a key part of, kind of defining the company's culture.
And then you have the visual identity as well. Then the visual identity, you have brand colors, you have the logo, you have the typography, which is the font style. And so in visual identity, you also have like the imagery and then the photography style as well. So all those things ensure that, the colors are being consistent. You have the color code like written in like all the formats that a color code could be picked up. So, and then you have the logo variation, all of that. And then you have the different ways that pictures can be used and the way pictures should be used for the brand. So in Simpletin now we have a particular way of using pictures. We have our very playful pictures, serious but very unserious. So I think there's one that we used on LinkedIn of me holding one of our gift boxes like this. I was told to shout hallelujah and I was like hallelujah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then we have a couple. I think Emmanuel was taking a picture of us, and he was about to follow people. And I was like, Emmanuel, don't follow. And then we use those
Yeah.
for our socials. So, and then we have some that are very very serious from our events, and then it's just like the guys just standing like this. So I just like, wow, very serious, and different things like we have this type of pictures, love like in that same you know family type. And then you have the do's and don'ts. The do's and don'ts is how the brown tone should be used and how it should not be used. So, and then it cuts across all the um all the aspects of branding. But usually where I focus on is the tone and the voice because I need everyone to be very intentional about how they speak and how they express the way the brand is. So on slide decks, when interacting with clients, even when interacting in person, I think there's a particular one there that says, "Be friendly with clients, but don't do not get over familiar with clients because it breeds room for disrespect, and that is not allowed. That's not something you stand for." So there are multiple things like that. Like, okay, use this exact color code. There is how to use because we have different font styles. We have the font style that is like very informal that we use internally or we use externally when we're like doing things like events that's not too serious, just like laid back stuff. That's what we use that for. So use this formal font pairing in this situation. Do not use this informal font pairing in this situation. Do use this like things like that. And then there's the font style that we have when we're not working a Canva. We have all of that. Different variations, different do's and don'ts for different scenarios, different contexts. So there is that in the brand guide as well. And it is very, very, very important to have all these elements in the brand guide. Oh, in the brand guide as well, the core values have to be there as well. We have our Kaizen philosophy. That is a core value that we hold dear to our heart. So there is that as well. A brand guide needs to carry all those elements. And at the end of the day, when you are done with your brand guide, literally done creating an entire personality, an entire person, how they think, how they look, how they present themselves, how they interact with people, how they show up in different scenarios. You created a person because when you are one person, you are yourself. But at the same time, there's a way you show up at home. There's a way you show up at work. There's a way you show up with your friends. There's a way you show up at church. There's a way you show up in different environments. And that is
And I think it's interesting using that word personality because you hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to associate with that brand," or I'm going to a podcast, but I just don't want anybody on my podcast." You hear all these different sides, and I think whilst a lot of people don't actually have a brand guide, in a way that is kind of like a brand guide because you're trying to make sure you only interact with those that maybe share the same values. You also want to make sure you're consistent with the messaging that you're giving out to your clients. And to be honest, it's not just companies, personal brand, content creators, all these kind of things, because sometimes you look at you like, one day you're like this, the other day like you're like that. Where exactly are you?
yeah.
And I think the brand guide is a structure to create that consistency of, say, anytime you interact with a personal brand or a business brand, you will get the message that they're passing across. You will get the same experience that they're passing across as well. Now, I remember asking you to actually share the brand guide with vendors when we do events.
Yeah.
I think also that businesses should invest in brand guides.
Yes.
Whether they do it themselves, it'd be good for you to get someone who knows what they're doing to get it done, like Simpletin, by the way. But anyway, let's continue. So yeah, because the thing there is to deliver very good work, you also need to know what the customer is like.
Yes.
If you understand their shades of blue, their logo, the kind of tones, you can actually work in those guidelines and deliver exactly what they would like, and you kind of represent who they really are
Yes.
as a brand. And I also think that companies who have brand guides can also issue out brand guides to any other brands they're working with to say, look, this is my guideline. This is, who I am. I want you to kind of follow. Like, for instance, you might have people want to put out a leaflet for an event and they use a totally different color. I always ask you to make sure you give brand guides to, companies whenever we're doing events so that they can represent us exactly the way we look, the voices. I remember December, we had an event, a picnic event, and we turned up and it looked like a wedding. Our colors went there. So I think most businesses have to educate themselves to understand what a brand guide is. And also, they should have one themselves.
Yes.
So, if you do need a brand guide, Simpletin is the place to go. www. Did I say that right? www.simpletinconsulting.com. So go there and book yourself a free discovery session. Free. Free. Also join us on LinkedIn, so you can follow what we talk about. But that being said, I think a lot of organizations actually needs a brand guide
Definitely.
to help them kind of be very consistent with everybody else. So that being said, now, Emmanuel, I want you to kind of give us a perspective of why design and branding go together in 2025.
Oh, okay. So there are many ways, but the first thing, it just goes back to brand guide. For instance, let's assume you employed a graphic designer or a UI UX designer. The first thing that person needs to get is the brand guide. And how this comes into branding is for every given output, whether it's your website, whether it's your social media platform, whether it's a flyer, if it's a message you are putting out, the brand guide ought to guide you as a designer, as a UX person, to ensure that whatever design you're putting out, whatever message you're putting out is in tune and in line with the brand guide. So it's recognizable to see, because those are things that are going out. Those are your outputs for your social media. And those are the places, because when we say client is interacting with the company, there are different ways clients interact with the company. They interact via the website, physically, on your social media platform, whatever. So every output that you're giving, even down, because when you're speaking about I'll go back to that, even down to how they communicate, everything has to be consistent. So for design, as a design person, when I say design, there's a lot. Product designer, we have graphic designer, we have UI UX, there's so many other things. But those people need to first of all be fully aware of the brand guide. What is in the brand? Who is this brand? And then they deliver their work in line with the brand guide. So that's the relationship, and that makes their work branded. That's why we say this work is branded.
Yeah, because I think that's interesting.
Then the consistency as well also ensures that the brand is unforgettable. Because the dangers of not having consistent branding is that you will be forgotten. You might the days, yes, you lose trust. You come today, you have one logo. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, nice. And the next tomorrow, we are seeing something else. How are we going to recognize you? Your brand is so unstable. There is no trust. They're like, okay, why do you keep on changing? Like, why are you so unstable? If you are so indecisive about what you want your logo to be, how can I trust you enough to put my entire business in your hands, or like put my entire, or like trust my money in your hands, like as a service provider, or like just believe in your product? Why are you always changing? Why are you always frustrating? And then it gives your competitors edge over you. So those are the dangers of not having a consistent brand or consistent brand.
Especially your
It's
design.
so dangerous. Yeah.
For consistency, yes, this for me, I would say if the company is well structured, having a consistent design with the brand guide might be maybe a bit easily achievable than the experience physically.
Why do you say so?
So if you've trained your guys well and you have a good designer, and like Marina said, you've introduced the brand guide, there's like a system to ensure that that is being followed. But now what about communicating with the client physically to ensure that whoever they interact with on the team gives them the same feeling,
Same experience.
same experience.
Sure.
And this is where I think that consistency is very, very important. And it comes from training. It comes from those interactions you have, those mindset interaction, how you ought to talk, how you ought to express, how the kind of energy you ought to give out. So I believe that consistency, apart from branding, apart from the designing, which is very important, the experience they have physically when they interact with a team member is very important. That every single time I come here, this is the same thing that they do. I feel the same way. And that gives you repeats. And one thing about consistency, it's like she said, recognizable. If you don't have a consistent brand, you won't be recognizable. And it's just like, for instance, today, I'm going to give you good this thing, and then maybe tomorrow my mood is bad. And for it to be consistent, out of 10 times, at least 8 times. If you are giving 5-5, it's confusing. If you are giving 6-5, you're already going back to the other side. So it must be constant over time.
So consistency. How do businesses stay consistent with their branding?
There are multiple ways, but one major way for me, for every and any business to stay consistent, is regular brand audits. So we worked on the brand audits some months ago. It was a long one. It was an in-depth one that lasted a while. And after that, we came up with so many recommendations that we've now implemented. And we've come this far. We changed our tagline. We changed our backdrop. We changed it from, I don't remember what it was.
It was passionate about business and personal growth.
Yes.
That's what it was previously, to feel your growth journey.
Yes. And we're able to do this. We're able to do so many other things I am so proud of that we're able to pull off as a team, because it was not just me. So I'm sure people are wondering, what is a brand audit? A brand audit is literally what it is. It's just looking at all the elements within a brand and just diagnosing it literally. It's like, okay, I'm a specialist, I'm a doctor. How are you doing elements? Tell me what is not well within you, and let me just diagnose your problem. That is just what a brand audit is. So looking at the logo, is this logo still relevant? Does this logo communicate what we stand for? Okay, this tagline, what does it mean? Is it relevant to our target audience? Okay, if someone is also trying to do like a rebrand, they can do a brand audit first and then rebrand. So it's a way of like just reassessing all the elements within a brand and then coming to a point where you're like, okay, I've seen everything that is wrong in my brand, and now I know how to make it even better. It's like sitting down, going for a therapy session, and they're like, wait, this is what you need to do about yourself. And like, this is how I can come out and become a better human being. Quite literally, that is just what it is.
Cool. If you need a brand audit, you know where to go. Simpletin. We can get that done for you. So Emmanuel, what's your take?
Okay, so for me, I was speaking majorly about the experience that client get physically. That's when they communicate with a team member. I strongly believe to be able to be consistent, with branding in that light will require training, because humans it's about knowledge. It's about how you're communicating to your client. It's about how you relate with them. If they are going through an issue, how do you do? If they're not understanding you, how do you go about it? How do you deliver your services? So it comes from just simply consistent training. Some people can call it brainwashing, but it's consistent training to wash off what is not right in communicating with clients, so that you just keep doing that, obviously. And before you know, you have each and every team member be able to represent the brand effectively. That's what I can.
Cool. Fatima, what about you?
So, to stay consistent in your designs, you need to pay attention to details. That's where you need to pay attention to the tiniest detail, and then you need to be intentional. So your brand guide is your best friend when designing.
Fun. All right, guys, you've heard it all. Simpletons, kind of giving you their take on how you need to be consistent and the importance of consistent branding in today's world. Simpletin Consulting, we're here to fuel your growth journey. Please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, join us on our LinkedIn page. Just look for Simpletin Consulting. And yeah, be free to go onto that website and book yourself a free growth consultation. And until next time, we'll see you again.
Bye.